Okay, moving on to our next chart type, line plots. Line plots are when you've got two variables and you think one affects the other one, like, there's some connection between poverty and crime, or, healthcare expenditures have been expanding over time, stuff like that, So you want to switch to what's called a line plot or a scatter plot. And so I'm going to be looking at some healthcare expenditures here from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. And if I go to their website, and I go to statistics, and I can scroll down, they've got a lot of statistics. The organization is approximately 30 nations. It's Europe, North America, and Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. So, so if you ever need to do some sort of international comparison, this is not a bad place to go. And under healthcare expenditures, the one I'm looking for is, went too far. Total health, or total expenditures on health per capita. I want to compare Canada and the United States. Okay, I'm just interested for my study purposes, whatever. So again, we can download this thing right here from Excel. And they have it broken down. So this is like from 2004 to 2010. If I wanted some earlier years, I could come back to this one here. I just click on whichever one I want. And it gives you a preview of the data that you're about to download. Okay? So if I was going to make this a long time series, I'd have to repeat the process and get, some data from this one and some from the next one and stitch the two together, but I'll just pick one here. So let's just do 2000 to 2007. Okay. So this is the one I want, so I just click on the Excel button there. And it's going to open in a new spreadsheet. And I'm going to get this weird error message from Excel. So I'm going back to my Excel book, and it said this. Just say yes. And there's my data. All right. Again, I get more. I did it this way because it's in a spreadsheet, and I can manipulate it. If in this one particular, I don't know if you noticed that or not, but if you try to copy and paste those two rows, because I only needed 2 rows out of that, if you try to copy and paste, you're going to end up with this problem, that it reports numbers like this, 3-209, 6-355. Okay. It turns out, and this you'll see this often when you're collecting statistics from Europe, that Europeans don't put commas between the thousands. They just put a space. Okay? So what I said, I was just going to copy and paste. I said, look, I only need 2 rows. I'll just copy and paste them and build my chart, right? Well, when I did that, I ended up with this mess like that. So then I'd have to go in and hand edit each one of those. Or I'd have to write a complex function to fix that. And I said, oh, that's too much work. I'm lazy. I'm efficient, not lazy. So then I just downloaded the spreadsheet. Okay. So generally speaking, if the 2 preferred methods, well, the best method is to import into another workbook and mess with it there. If not, use that web data import thing, and if all else fails, go to copy paste. All right. So anyway, enough of that story. So here's my data. Same thing as before. I don't need, so I'm just taking out what I don't need. And I just want 2 countries, so there we go. What the heck? Let's just do 2. Let's just keep it simple. Charts should always be simple. People try to cram too much into a chart. And when you do that, you confuse your audience, and then they forget the message and all that sort of stuff. All right. So there we go. Right? I've got everything nice there. Everything's labeled. No blank rows, columns in between. All that sort of stuff. A nice little compact area. And then I just tell it I want a either a line plot or a scatter plot. Here's the difference between the two. And it's the only difference. Line plots. The data that goes on the horizontal axis is text data. It's not numeric, it's text. So like if I was doing this on a country by country basis, that would be if I wanted to say, here's Canada, here's the United States, left to right, and all that sort of stuff, then I do a line plot. If the data that's on the horizontal axis is numeric, then I use a scatter plot. So I'm not for sure what this came in as. Well, let's just try. We'll just try a scatter plot to see if this works. Okay. And you can either get it where it just puts the dot, just puts a little dot wherever there's a data point, or if you want to connect the dots, you can do that. I'll just connect the dots here. Okay. Now, see, I didn't get my years down here, so that means it sees that data as text. So I can come back to change chart type and switch to line plot. Let's see if that fixes it. Yep. Okay. So when you do this sort of thing and the stuff on the bottom axis, the horizontal axis doesn't look right, just switch to the other type, and it usually fixes the problem for you. Okay. All right. It needs a title. We need to explain what that 8,000 is over on the side. So we probably should, in this case, let's just do a couple of things here. I'll show you a couple more things. I clicked on that layout, axes, titles. Okay. We want to make sure that people understand that the numbers are in U.S. dollars and not Canadian dollars. Because like if we put a dollar sign in front of all those, could be either one, right? And Canadian dollar is not exactly the same as the United States dollar. So over here we can go axis, titles, vertical. I'll pick this one. If you don't like that one, you can put it in U.S. You can change it whenever you get done here. Oh, if I just... Nope. What am I doing wrong here? Let's just switch this. I'll put it this way for now. It's easier for me to deal with. U.S. dollars, like that. And now, if I decide that takes up too much chart room, I can just flip it. Okay. And then the other thing I'd probably want to do here in my axes here, we could go back to this. You see, I've showed you this trick before, but let's just clean it up. This is actually in billions of dollars. Whoops, true. No, it's not. It's in millions. What happened? Oh, it's not. It's thousands. Well, then I got a real problem. Because it's not thousands, it's actually billions. Okay, so here's the thing. To get this thing to work out right, what I'd have to do is I'd have to probably come back in here and write formulas to multiply each one of those by a million, or because this is 2 billion, I'm sure, and that's 4 billion. To make my chart come out right, I'm going to have to mess with this table a little bit, because this is like thousands. Well, I could... Only math people and Europeans, well, in Europe they don't have billions, it's millions, it's thousands of millions. Just, again, another one of those cultural differences. So I could put, here I could put millions of US dollars, right, for my vertical axes. And technically speaking, that's right. But in this country, nobody ever talks about thousands of millions, right? We don't talk about $60,000 million, which is 60 billion. So what we'd have to do to make this thing all come out right would be something like this. this cell times, is that right, 1,000? That's not up. Hundreds, thousands, millions. Nope, I need another zero in there, times a million. Okay, like that. Okay, so now that I got that one done, all I have to do, I can copy it down this way, right? Like that, and then I can copy it over this way. Whoops. Like this. And then I can copy this stuff down. Paste it like that. And I need this. Or actually, since I can do this way. So sometimes you have to mess around with your data. So this would be 2000. This would be 2001. And now that I'm sure those are numeric numbers, like that, and then I can tell it to insert a graph, scatter, like that, okay? And then I can go ahead and dress it up and get everything working right. The hardest part of building a chart is getting the data together in the right format. All right. One other thing that you need to be aware of with scatter plots, line plots. Back on, I forgot to turn that on. Okay, never mind. Here's some other data that I put together, because I want to show you something else that you need to be aware of. That's a true scatter plot. Okay. The size of the graph matters in these kinds of charts. Let me go back to here. Here's the default one. Okay? Notice how things go up and down, and there's, you know, some years it's good and other years it's not so good and that sort of stuff. Just by changing the size of the chart, we can change the perception of those numbers. If I were to make it long and skinny like that, it flattens those numbers out. Okay. So it makes it look like that's a much more stable set of numbers. And in fact, if you know, I'm going to take this to the extreme. I can make it look almost flat. All right? If I go the other way, you know, the exact opposite happens. Like that. So now it looks like it's just, you know, up and down, and stuff like this. When you're making these kinds of charts, people will actually, oftentimes will try to fit them in the document and stuff like that, and they'll distort this, you know, one dimension or the other one, just simply so it fits nicely on the page. But when you do that with these kinds of charts, you can make almost any kind of story you want out of this, right? So you got that. We've got that story. And both, again, I haven't changed any of the numbers. I just changed the ratio of the axes. And then, so the rule of thumb when you're dealing with this sort of stuff is the chart should be roughly square. And these sorts of things. You know, and you can fudge that a little, and oftentimes if you've got lots of data, if this was a time series that went back even further, then they'll tend to be out this way. Just be careful. When you build these kinds of charts, don't go in there and just change things around so that it fits on the page nicely. Unless you want to. Okay. All right. So your job here is to get from OECD life expectancy for those two countries from 2002 to 2007. Go ahead and work on that one.